How do you manage expectations in this team to play at their best when the season starts, Coach?
Yeah, I just think you'd be super transparent and honest, and it's real easy to point out that this time last year there were teams that were, expected to do great and didn't, and there are teams that weren't expected to do well, like the Aggies, and did well. So the past never equals the future in life, and it certainly never equals the future in baseball. So, I've been a part of teams that were preseason number one and finished in the College World Series, and preseason number one and didn't make it out of a regional. So, I don't think anybody here assumes anything. I know nobody here is assuming anything, and but that doesn't mean we aren't confident, and that doesn't mean, that's you want. The goal when you come to a place like A&M is to, you understand, you run toward expectation. You don't run away from it, and that's what the great players do.
Look at what Nathan's done over the offseason. How is he a different guy coming into this season than maybe where he left off last season?
Yeah, certainly is a completely different player physically. Bigger, stronger, hopefully more durable, or as durable, which hopefully can allow him to be more consistent in his performances. He should have all the confidence in the world. He's at a stage in his career as a college player where he should be really confident. He should walk to the mound, not assuming anything, but with his chest stuck out. I'm the best pitcher on the field today, and we believe he's that. He needs to believe he's that. I think he's getting there. But that's what the great ones do. It's the difference between ego and confidence, right? And you don't want to assume anything. You always want to have humility, but which he does have plenty of that. But we want him to walk out there and kind of be on the attack versus being unsure of himself.
How much did getting that second outing in Omaha and kind of righting that ship put him on the trajectory for that?
Yeah, sir. Yeah, I think I certainly helped him. I think there's no teacher like experience, and so to do that on that stage against a great team like Notre Dame and in a losers bracket game, other than pitching in a championship series, he's done everything you can do as a college pitcher, right? As far as I know, at least for his school. So he should be well prepared to have a great season.
When you have so many guys that have been through the fire, coach, that are back, how does that change this time leading up to the season, and then when the bullets start flying, how does that change when you have so much experience back?
Yeah, it's awesome. Just like I said in the fall, anytime you have that kind of experience in leadership, then the team can be, player-led, and instead of coach-driven all the time, it's player-led, and guys can help each other on one-on-one basis. There's guys that aren't afraid to stand up in front of the team, and whether it be an encouraging word or whether it be, a kick in the rear end. When that comes from a player, it's always better when it comes from a player than when it comes from a coach. So a lot like last year. I stood in front of you guys last year and said, I don't know what kind of team we're going to have or season we're going to have, but I know what kind of people we have. And same thing is true, maybe even more so this year. And we'll find out when you hit some adversity, and that's when you really find out. But especially with those returning players, the greatest compliment I can give a team is that you can trust them. And this is a team I really trust.
Piggyback off that, but how important is it to have pressure with newcomers to that group that's back, that has that experience, that they can kind of push and pull each other to be the best team they can be?
Yeah, that happens on a daily basis, whether it be in the weight room or in the locker room, whether they're at a team meal talking about nutrition, whether they're talking about sleep. They're holding each other accountable and say, listen, if you want to compete at this level, you better do X, Y, and Z at a really high level. And if you're not, then you're shortchanging yourself and you're shortchanging the team. So these guys are pretty unified. Again, we'll find out when we can only play 9 at a time versus everybody gets to play an inter-squad game. But yeah, that kind of stuff's been going on since day one, and I think the returning players. It was cool to go to Omaha, but it wasn't cool to lose, and that's not cool. It's great for Ole Miss, but not great for the Aggies. So at some point, we want to be the last team standing. So no better time than now.
What have you seen from Chris Cortez this offseason, and what is the plan to utilize him, whether it be rotation or bullpen?
Yeah, he's really on a good path. Through an inter-squad game yesterday. The key with Chris is, like any pitcher, it's not just having a good fastball, which he has, but commanding it. But more importantly, if he's going to be a starting pitcher, which we would like for him to be, and I know he would like to be, is he's got to be able to throw his off-speed pitches for strikes. And so far, he's on a really good track that way. It's not perfect yet, and it's never going to be perfect. But yesterday, in yesterday's inter-squad, he threw multiple off-speed pitches for strikes. He was able to pitch behind the count. You couldn't just sit on his fastball, which made his fastball play even better. So the plan, to answer your question, is for him to be a starting pitcher. But we're only one game in, so the guys that pitch the best pitch the most. So there's some other guys that want that role too. But in an ideal world, I'd like to have Chris be a starting pitcher.
So who are the other names that are vying for a spot?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, Detmer. I think Weinstein has a chance. I think Justin Lampkin has a chance to do that. I think Wyatt Tucker has a chance to do that. We really, with the exception of maybe 20% of the pitching staff, you really develop them all as starting pitchers this time of year, and then you see who can handle 3 or 4 innings at a time, and what does that look like, and then kind of make your judgment from there. But then you start the season and things change, right? So things, just because we start the season with one rotation doesn't mean it's going to end that way. Normally doesn't end that way. But we have more bodies to choose from this year. Again, if you go on the whole ceiling floor type conversation, I'm not sure, the ceiling, Detmer's better. Cortez, I think, has a chance to be elite at some point in his career. But the floor of the thing has been, there's more good, solid college pitchers there to choose from, which will give us more options out of the bullpen. When we have a guy get banged up, maybe give us more options. But it's all relative to the competition. And everybody knows our league. Everybody knows you can look at our schedule and see what that is. So it's not about just being the best version of us. It's about being able to compete against the best version of the other team too.
College baseball, took a big step forward, to have another assistant, and that how much that doesn't just help you keep Michael Early, but grow this game. How important was that? And for Michael Early to trust in you, and you being on the coaches, high in the coaches committees, that this is coming, and this is a good place for you.
Yeah, number one, it was way overdue, obviously. Our sport, for some reason, gets treated, I don't know how you say it, it's a bastard stepchild of the NCAA, to be honest with you. That's what I think. Because we have a roster limitation, nobody else does. We have a minimum scholarship, nobody else does. We have the fewest number of coaches per player than any other sport, men or women, and baseball just gets stepped on. And I don't think that's right. But Michael, showed a lot of faith in, not me necessarily, but the university, the process. It's a great compliment to Bryan College Station. Number one, that's the greatest compliment, is because he's got 3 young children and a wife, and they love living here. If this was a place you didn't like to live, doesn't matter how much you paid. Or if you're paid at all, you want to get the heck out. And then it also speaks to Texas A&M, and then the program, so the baseball program. So yeah, we're super excited we're not there yet. We got to get to July 1st and then put everything together for him. But I've had great conversation with Ross, and he understands his value, and so we want to keep him here for a long time. And if he leaves to be a head coach somewhere, great. But we don't want him leaving to be an assistant coach anywhere.
Coach, you've talked about how you want Detmer to develop a bounty hunter mentality to get running. How do you do that? I mean, you can throw him a lot, but how do you develop that in the pitcher?
Every day, the weight room. I mean, Jeremy McMillan has a lot to do with that. Conversations, whether they be one-on-one between he and Nate, challenging him, joking with him. I have a guy like Jake Arrieta, one of my former players from TCU, pitched in the big leagues for a real long time, that won a Cy Young, that Jake was all about mentality. He was a good pitcher, but he stayed and made a lot of money in the big leagues, took the Cubs to a World Series because of mentality, and had Jake come in and spend some time with our team, and he and Nathan got to talk. And so, but ultimately it's on him to go out there and have that, find that middle ground of, he's got the Boy Scout part figured out. It's the bounty hunter that he needs to continue to grow in, and he is.
Catcher still seems to be a spot, losing Troy Klontz, that you have question marks.
Sure.
But tell us about the pieces you have to fill as important a spot as there is on a defensive baseball team.
Yeah, I mean, you're not replacing Troy Clance. You're just not from a leadership experience, right? You just don't. Those guys don't. They don't. They don't hang from trees. You just hope to be able to put it together in other parts of your team. But in terms of the physical side of catching, that we have guys back there that I think are super talented. They're just not super experienced. So, they all bring something different. J.D. Gregson's a really athletic player with a lot of upside. Hank Bard's the son of a college coach, minor league manager, left-handed hitter, has bounced around and been a lot of different places. And then we have two high school players. Well, one true freshman, and then a guy that graduated high school early, and Max Coffer, who so far, just from the way he's handled himself, has been ultra impressive in terms of just the way he's handled himself. He's only had 2 or 3 at bats in inter-squad games, but yeah, there's no doubt that's an area, and we knew that going in, and we've been working like crazy on it. Nolan Kane, these guys are way better today than they were when they showed up, but they're not to where they need to be, like most players. And but there's never been a good team without a good catcher. So, but that's not to put all of our success or failure on one player, but we certainly need to be capable back there, and I think we will be.